Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I am your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create ecosystems where people can thrive. Look, today I have an amazing guest, my newest friend that is doing some really exciting, innovative, and leading change here in the city of Charlotte. This woman is leading what we call community relations. And when I think about the word or the term community relationships or just community relations as a whole, that's something that we as funders, we as philanthropists, we as individuals often miss. We don't understand the importance of our community. We don't understand the steps to be able to develop quality and authentic relationships. And we don't understand the power of how that community and how those relationships, as they intersect, can be the change that we wish to see in our students, in our community, and into our institutions. Sarah, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am amazing. I'm amazing. It's been an exciting first 28 days of 2026.
Right?
It's been exciting. And as I think about, just even the word excitement, like what's getting you excited in this season?
I think, fall is a really event heavy time in a school and everything's gearing up. And then I love that spring kind of gives you a little bit of breath, and then it's all the follow up on all the hard work that you put in the fall. And so, I mean, kind of it's cheesy, but the seasons of you're cultivating all of that. And then it's oh, it's blooming. And I think I'm excited to the spring is a lot of our events are around stewardship and appreciation, and that stuff just really is where my heart lives. So
I love it. I love it. And I love that your heart lives in the work that you do as well. And before we talk about all the great things that you are doing, can you first just introduce yourself? Talk about what makes you different than anybody else in these roles that we obtain.
I love that. So I started in this role. My background's in education in K-6, and I taught in the classroom, but I always felt this calling of being involved in a school, but in a different way. I was more concerned when I was teaching of well, how are the kids feeling? What are the vibes? What's going on? And then they're like, Sarah, you have to teach math. I'm like, no. So I found, this alumni relations role that I started in, and it had all of the pieces of being part of a school, but that I loved, but then also this other layer of relationships and really celebrating people and connecting people. And so I started that here at Cannon School. And then last summer, my role expanded to be our director of community engagement. So now I handle our parent relationships, grandparents, and friends of the school.
I had the joy of speaking to a colleague of mine earlier that's based in Buffalo, New York, and he's just assumed a new position running a school. And one of the challenges that he was experiencing is re-engaging with their alumni network. He was explaining that they have 10,000 people that have been through their programs, but they don't do anything with their alumni. And when you mention this importance of developing these relationships and leveraging parents and community and students and all of these different aspects, where do you begin? Where do you begin with this process and this journey of developing relationships?
I feel like it's a part thing. I feel like there's so many great independent schools out there. So talking to other people who do this, because there's wonderful ideas that you can find. And then it's so much listening. I talk to really any alum that would talk to me, and whether that was through Instagram or if they came to campus, because our alums, they're young, so they weren't really that engaged in the community. And finding out like what connected them back here. Yeah, it's their teachers, but there's usually an experience or something that really just like was cemented in their mind. And once you can connect on those things, then like the work kind of happens for itself because they remember and they're like, oh, I do love that. And I actually worked on a re-engagement campaign this year for our earliest graduates. They graduated in the 70s. We did 3 classes, and those alum had pretty much felt disengaged. They felt ignored by the school, and they expressed that in an alumni survey. And I was like, oh, these are about to be my best friends. Like, I got to find these people. And I learned, just everything about them. Their experience was so different, but how could I be the bridge to bring them to where we are now so that they could really feel part of this place?
Sarah, I really appreciate how you just described that, and brings me so much joy. And you started with listening, and you talked about, there was a phrase that you gave, like how we cemented an experience. And I think about so many experiences outside of fundraising and philanthropic giving and outside of education, just simple experiences like when you go on vacation.
Yeah.
And when you go to that resort and they know your name and they take your bags to your room and the food's already ready and all of these different things, why is it so challenging for us to be able to listen? And how does the lack thereof quality or active listening disrupt or not allow us to really be able to create these experiences for students in your case, or for parents, or for alumni, or even as a part of capital campaigns that stick or that are cemented with the people that we're serving?
The word that like comes to me is really humility. I think that there's there's so much ego in anyone's job, and there's this idea of like, if I don't know it all, then somehow I can't be good at this. And I think that showing up without that and just willing to listen and learn, it it changes the game, because people don't want to feel like a number or a project, or like they want to just have that natural authentic interaction. And I think it gets stuck if you don't have that humility to say, oh my gosh, like we did mess up, how can we get you back here, or like, oh, that was weird, or like whatever it is. And I think that once you meet people in that place, they give you so much more room to then, like, that builds the trust, because you're sharing a part of yourself with them that's authentic, so then they're going to meet you there.
That's good. Now talk to me about your authentic self. Like, what got you to this point? What was the slingshot moment that made Sarah Sarah in today's time?
I feel like it's like a boomerang of sorts. I think like I've read something the other day, or probably like saw it on Instagram. I don't know if I was actually reading, but it was like, your 30s or your 40s is when you become your middle school self, but you just don't like care about what people think or something.
That's good.
I really feel that, where, I had such an idea of like, I'm going to, go to college and become a teacher, and this is all going to be very cookie cutter. And when that didn't like work for me, because it just wasn't who I was built to be, it felt like such a failure of all of this like dream and work. And I think that I was actually just reading on your LinkedIn today, because I was, stalking to see what you were, and it was talking about like how when you're in those low places, that's when something unexpected sometimes comes out of left field.
Yes.
And I think that, when I saw the job posted here, and I had this feeling of like, my kids go to school here, it was like, oh, well, who can I be working there? Do I have to be Sarah, or can I be this? Like, can I really be myself? And I think the go ahead on that was a continual process of all those small interactions, and realizing, wait, I'm rewarded when I show up exactly as I am. That's what people respond well to, and so then encouraging people around me to feel the same way.
That took work. that took either a moment, a mentor, or something, because I recognize what it took for me as seasons and then mentorship and then programs and growth and all of these different stages of life.
Yeah.
For you to have that realization that you can have the courage or the boldness to show up exactly how you are, and that person is enough. What did that take for you?
There's definitely mentors involved. I mean, I think that different people who I've worked with here have made an impact. Our team has had a bunch of transition, and in some ways that's been hard, but in other ways it's given me all these different kind of lenses to different people of learning of, oh, well, that doesn't, that's not great, or this is wonderful. Um, and I think that, yeah, I think that it here having the things kind of break wide open and that vulnerability we get put on display early on with the team turning over, it gave me this opportunity of like, okay, well, I'm not pretending anymore. So I'm here, they're gone. And then what do I want this to be? And it gets really tiring to not show up as your authentic self. I think it's painful, especially when you're a human like connector,
Yeah.
that's almost the worst thing you can ask is like to like withhold who you are. And so yeah, it was a lot of work. I mean, it's still work. And there's times where I'll get in my head and think, oh, I need to do this interaction perfectly or this event this way. And I'm really lucky that I have some coworkers and just friends and people who are like, no, just show up as Sarah. Like just be, that's what people respond to, you know? So
That's so good. I saw something earlier that really resonated with me that probably resonate with you as well. It was at 35, I discovered the most expensive thing I owned wasn't my car or apartment. It was the life I built for everyone else's approval, and I couldn't afford it anymore. And when I read that, I just stopped, and I'm going to probably put it on LinkedIn a little bit later. I was like, wow, that really spoke to me. And why do you think, Sarah, in your career, just in general and professionals as a whole, that is it the spaces, is it the culture in professional spaces that don't allow us to show up as ourselves? Is it us? Is it societal norms? Because I feel like even working in education, students show up as who they are every day.
right.
At what point in that journey, though, do we start showing up as someone that we're not? And then at what point do we start showing up as who we are as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that quote. I think that's so true, especially like in this type of work, it's easy to be a people pleaser because you can see that as kindness that, oh, I'm giving everyone everything and then you're empty. And so I think that it's that, yeah, that balance of trying to show up as yourself while still part of a bigger system. And I think it comes down to fear. Like it's that rejection, you know, and it's interesting you say that about being part of a school because there's parts here that I almost feel like reparent me in some weird way when we're, you know, we're pouring into these kids and we're talking about their journey of growth and we're talking about them, you know, our middle school is built really big on, you know, failure and you're able to fail and you have a soft place to land. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did we ever quit doing this? Like, that sounds great. Can we keep doing that? And so I think like, yeah, as the adults in the room, yeah, how do we keep modeling that? And anytime we bring that to a space, it gives everyone else permission too. And I think that feels small, but I really think that the ripple effect of it is pretty big. And it's bravery, you know, because you're putting yourself out there. You could be rejected. Someone's going to be like, that's too much, or this is weird, or why are you like that? You're cringe, mom. That's what my 11-year-old says.
That's the new one these days. You're cringe. I love it. You know, when I think about all of it, what we're talking about, I hear the voice of a nonprofit leader or a school leader that is struggling with developing these relationships, is struggling with showing up as themselves, is struggling with creating a culture within their organization that is authentic and is pure or is inclusive in a sense as well. How do you do what you do well? You know, when you think about, hey, we want to attract these types of individuals, or we want to develop these types of campaigns around these specific initiatives, where do you begin and what's the journey that you would advise someone listening in going through so that they can do it successfully as well?
I think working backwards helps sometimes when you kind of reverse engineer what's the goal, what's your outcome. Okay, are we wanting, a really like expansive alumni network? So then talking to those alums, that is the biggest piece. I think it's so easy, especially with how disconnected people are now, to just read a bunch of things online or ask ChatGPT and all these different things. And it's like, yes, sometimes that works, but it's honestly way easier to just like talk to someone and say, hey, we have the alumni board. I'm like, what what would you guys want to see? How would you want this to work? And 9 times out of 10, you're in like educational institutions, people's ideas are wonderful. And so it's really just being that mirror to show what's already there. When I do some mock interviews for our kids here, and they'll always be like, I'm so nervous and I don't know how to talk about myself. And I'm like, you've done all the work. Now you're just like unwrapping the present in front of someone. You're just showing them how great you are, so you get to show them. And I think that sometimes it gets complicated with all of the like school politics and fear and just how people operate, to take a step back and think like, your community is already here. You just have to find it, and you have to find those leaders within it who have that influence and really nurture those relationships. Yeah. And realize that no touch point is too small. I think it's a big focus, and it's easy for me to say in my role, but like when you only focus on, the larger donors, or you only focus on these certain families, and you just never know the reach of any one person. And it might not be financial. It might just be their word of mouth. It might be, you just never know. It could come up 10 years later. And I think that never underestimating any interaction you're having as being like transformational for your school is really important.
Let me ask you this, because you brought up a great point, not necessarily, overlooking the little guy in a sense. Yeah. But I do recognize in the grand scheme of productivity that you do oftentimes, whether you want to or not, prioritize where to focus your time based upon historical data, based upon historical trends of potential donors.
Yeah.
How do you recommend someone prioritize their time if they're new to this space, if they're doing this work for the first time, when they have a book of business? How would you recommend them approaching this work?
I mean, I think that, yeah, there's obviously the logical, like you're saying, the data-driven part that has to be there. And then I think there's the human part. And so how do you kind of put those together? Whether it's like a percentage in your mind of like, okay, I'm going to have this percentage towards these people. But I think just not forgetting is the biggest thing. Like not forgetting that and especially in a, independent school, every single person who's here is paying the tuition to be here. So they're already, giving us something. And so I think that even if we're just stewarding that and their enrollment continuing, but yeah, I think that it's being, organized and being thoughtful with your time. Yeah, you don't want to waste a lot of time, but how can you create spaces and get people in rooms where they feel seen, even if they're not, the person writing the biggest check?
What was an experience in your career thus far that you always go back to, whether it was a conversation with a donor, whether it was a major gift, whether it was just someone that received some of the impact that you helped to create? What was one of the moments that you'll always remember that continues to help keep that fire rolling within your life?
I feel like that it's really transformational when I can make a connection between two people that wouldn't have been there otherwise. So I've brought several alumni speakers back to talk to our upper school kids. And selfishly, it kind of happens by happenstance, but also I love to find people who are in underrepresented communities. So I'm like, who is not in this school, who's not seeing themselves up on that stage, who's not feeling like they belong here maybe. And so we had a speaker last year, Justin Weeks. He was amazing. He does some Broadway acting, and he's one of our alum, and he came back.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back.
And he was up there talking about, his life, his identity as like a Black gay man. And he's telling all this to these kids. And, it's this whole room of predominantly white kids. We have diversity here, but that's not the target audience. Yeah. There was a student afterwards who stayed back and talked to him. And I thought like, oh, that's nice. And then I want to say it was probably 6 months later, he actually returned to do like a little workshop with some of the kids. Yeah. And when he came in, that same student was waiting there. And he was like, hey, I wrote some smash poetry. And like, I wondered if I could read it to you. And Justin was like, of course, like, let's go. And they like watching them have that moment of like, this kid is seeing someone that is inspiring him that he probably didn't even know existed, who came through these same walls. And that person is taking the time to listen to him. And like those moments make it worth it, because I just think being part of a school and like what impact we can have on every single person that's involved. Like, I just love when there's a connection like that made and someone gets to feel like belongingness,
I do. No, I do feel that. And it reminds me of so many stories working in education with making those connections. So I'm glad you made that connection even there. What I hear from you, and I can see it, it's like a light that shines off of you, is that you're not just good at this. This feels like this is what you've been called to do. But when did you realize that, though? Because I'm sure there's a lot of things and skills and things that you do that you're good at. But when did you realize that this may be what you need to do?
I feel like it's something that feels so like natural to me I don't have to try to care about people. I don't have to try to listen empathetically. And I think that when something doesn't, like, it's cliche, but like when something doesn't feel like work, it just feels like who you are, then that is when you've like hit your stride. Because I think that there's so many times that I've tried to fit myself into some other box and it feels so wrong. And you're just like, insides are screaming. You're like, no, this isn't it. Yeah. And it's really hard in those moments to say this isn't it, because especially if we've built our mind up around it. But if being a mom, I think, is a big piece, because I always think back to my kids and I think like, how would I want them to feel when they're this age? Like, would I want them to be doing something that's like sucking the life out of them? And anytime I see myself through their eyes, I can kind of go back to that place of like showing up as me. And yeah, I don't know. It feels right. The vibe's right.
No, I can tell. It seems like it, definitely. Let me ask you this. When the cool thing that I love about working in education is that there's so many different generations. So how do you, I guess, create community across generations, from students to alumni to grandparents? Like, how do you actually do that?
I think it goes back to like what connects all of us, when and at this point it's the school, so whether a grandparent is coming and they're getting to experience grandparents day through their lower schoolers, 6-year-olds eyes, and they get to feel included. I think that and celebrated, anytime we're having anything with any constituent involved, I love for them to not, that's kind of the two things, is like, how do we include you, how do we celebrate you, how do we leave you where you're wanting to be involved. It's not a push, and so that kind of give and take, it's a dance of, even with our parent volunteers, I think, they want to be here because they are passionate about the place where their kids are. So how do we open that door for them? And I don't know. I feel like I've lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm just a human, man. I don't know.
It's what connects us.
That's a big thing too. Yeah. Like, that's it. I don't know.
It's interesting though. And I love, and I talk to my dad more and more these days because I'm spending more time with him, and I could just see the differences in generations and how we think and how we do things. And we were having a conversation the other day, and I'm like, look, you see it that way, I see it this way, but I want us to learn how we can see this from the way so that we could be able to communicate potentially better in these situations. And it was such a beautiful moment because in that moment, I realized that, hey, his lens is based upon his experiences, and then mine is based upon mine and my generation. And oftentimes when we're building community, we have to take a lens that's different than ours so that we can be able to identify how we can be able to bring and connect all of us together rather than finding differences. But when you find someone that's skeptical, when you find someone that's frustrated or potentially disengaged, how do you approach building trust with that individual that is disengaged, is skeptical, doesn't necessarily trust the institution as well?
Yeah, I think you're so right, generationally, and especially it's like with us dealing with alum who graduated in the 2000s, and then you have alum who graduated in the 70s. Their experiences are completely different, and what draws them to something, even how they want to be communicated with, and so I think that's a big thing of meeting people where they are, where, I'm that person who will send the Instagram message and just be like, hey, what's up? Can we share your engagement? And someone's like, who is this? And I'm like, I'm your friend. I thought you knew me. What? But then I think, when we were re-engaging those early graduates, like that involved so many like phone calls. And I actually, there was a teacher. So with talking to some of those students, there was a teacher that meant so much to all of them. His name kept coming up and we didn't have his information in our database. And I was like, I need to get this teacher involved in this because that's who they really care about. Like, I'm just here. So I like Googled him. There was no phone number. I found an address and I was like, I'm just going to mail him a letter and see if he answers. And so I mailed him a letter with my phone number and was just like, hey, these students have been raving about you and I'd loved if we could get on the phone. Here's my phone number. And like a week later, I got a phone call and he was like, hey, I got your letter in the mail. Wow. And he was like, I love those kids. And he had the same memories as them. Yeah. And so he ended up coming and like meeting our current head of school and reconnecting with all these students of his. And I think that to your point of generationally, like not being like, I felt kind of crazy being like, I'm going to write this man a letter. But I was like, oh, well, what's the worst that can happen? Like, he doesn't get it or he ignores me. And then like, what's the best? The risk is worth it. Like maybe then now he's re-engaged. And so I think that, yeah, kind of being creative, like that creative mindset where we get so many emails, we get so many, like even like spam texts, like sometimes it has to be a little bit different. Like, how do you, or is it, our younger generations, they only want to hear from you if it's like a really short bit of information. So give it to them bite size, really tiny. So I think that That's definitely, but it takes a lot of like adjusting and kind of like dancing to figure out like, oh, what is the temperature? Oh, they're wanting this level of engagement. And then if I called up someone who graduated in 2020 on the phone, they would be like, why is my phone ringing? Like, don't call me.
Exactly. All of their calls are silenced. No, it's the craziest thing.
That would be like, no, immediate no. Yeah.
You know, I love what you mentioned earlier. You said, the risk is worth it. And I really love that statement because I think that a lot of times we're not willing to step out of our own zone of genius or our own comfort zone to take that risk, to send that letter, to go look up where someone is, to have that conversation, to go on that listening tour and really identify ways to connect with people deeper. And you're doing that, and you're making an impact. You're creating a legacy at Cannon School as well. What do you hope though? Like, what do you hope people feel after they interact with you at Cannon that continues to cement your legacy and the work that you're doing there?
I hope that people feel like authentically seen. I hope they feel that after, we've interacted, whether it's just like in the car line, checking in and saying, hey, or, at a large event, just want that. I think of back to being a teacher and when you're filling up your students in the classroom and you try to just pour into them. And like, I just think of that in our adults, we quit doing that to people. And I actually told our head of school that one time, and it sounds kind of demeaning at first, but it really isn't, in the sense that I'm like, everyone is like, I taught kindergarten. I'm like, everyone is just still a kindergartner, like in there. They're just still they're just a kid. Like, yeah, we're in these grown up bodies and we're trying to do all these jobs. But like at the end of the day, we want someone to just be like, you're okay. And like, I accept you and we're glad you're here. And so I hope that continues. I hope that not being afraid of hard conversations continues, because I think that with schools being, a business of sorts, there's always fear around who are we like, what's the word? Who are we reaching? Are we isolating anyone? There's all these thoughts that don't cross my mind, because I'm like, yeah, we're just humans. Let's be nice. Yeah. But I think that being less afraid of other people, because really, like, every single person here, even the ones that have been really upset, it's because they care about their kid. They care deeply about the school and they want it to go well. And so how do you get past the outside emotions and really just see humans for humans? And sometimes that's hard. Like, I'll cry at work if someone yells at me. I'm like, why are they mean? I'm like, but it's not personal. It's people care a lot, so.
That's a great perspective to have, especially the irate parent. They just care. They're just
so passionate. It's so much passion. It's just misguided passion. We gotta steer it this way.
So good. As I think about this conversation, this has been phenomenal. And I really want to just say this again and second this. You have such a light about yourself when you show up. And I appreciate your wisdom, your heart, your time that you've even shared, and the seeds that you've sown into not just myself, but all of our listeners from around the world. If you could give one piece of advice, one message to every educator, every nonprofit leader, every individual that's listening to this podcast, trying to build community, what would you say?
I think I would say that to not underestimate even the smallest acts that you do. I think that we are in such a fast-paced time, and there's this kind of illusion that everybody wants things really quick, and we want to, text and be disconnected and all of those things. But I see the impact from those really genuine human interactions, whether it's a phone call, whether it's just waving to someone. I think that not to be afraid to keep doing that stuff. I think there's always the idea of like, what's next? What's next on the events front? What's next on the education front? And AI's here and all these things. And yes, those are great tools. But like, don't ever forget that, like, just as a human, like, our gifts are enough. And it's something that can't be replicated. And I just think that I appreciate you saying that about me, because I hope that people do feel that, because I feel that when I'm able to talk about this stuff and able to connect with another human, because I think that's the beauty of being alive. Like, why else are we, like, what are we doing, you know?
Literally. When people reach out to you,
Yeah.
when people find you somewhere, what is one thing that you want them to take away from you?
I think it's like fun with a deeper level. Like, I love I love to just bring people like silliness and joy and like childlike humor of like, how do we just have fun? And like, when I'm not on the hallway, if I'm home with my kid or whatever, people are like, Sarah, it's so quiet. It's so not fun. It's boring. And I'm like, I know the clown will be back soon, but it's like, but I'm like, I think though, it's like, yeah, I want people to feel that, and to feel like that they matter for that little minute, however long it is, you know, and that it's a mutual thing. I mean, getting to communicate with other humans and build community, it fills me up too, because it's part of my passion. Like you said, it feels like a purpose higher than me in some ways.
That's good. Where can people find you? Where can people follow your work, connect with you?
Yeah.
And what are you most excited about for the rest of this quarter?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there, Sarah Sooklal. And I'm most excited. We do a volunteer appreciation breakfast that I started last year. And it's at the end of the year, and our volunteers get to come together, and it's all parents, and they get to kind of lift each other up. They get to talk about like who their top volunteer was, or, you know, really recognize the people who pour into this school. And it feels so meaningful to me, because as a parent and as a part of this community, like, I think that's so important. It's important to get people engaged, but then how do you like appreciate that engagement on the back end, you know, because otherwise it falls flat, and then and that builds the momentum, and then other people see it, and it just creates that sense of belonging and community. So I'm super excited about that. And just in general, all the people I might meet.
I know earlier in the conversation, before we started recording, you were mentioning just kind of this new Canon School.
Yeah.
And like, what is Canon School for someone that this is their first time ever hearing about Canon School?
Yeah.
Who is Canon School now?
So Canon School started in 1969 in a house on a street. And I actually went to kindergarten there, and it was wild. And so we had kindergarten in this house. My family ended up moving away. I didn't graduate from here. But in the 90s, they moved to this campus, and it's an expansive campus. It's beautiful. We have, you know, all the way from JK to 12, and just phenomenal educators, people who care so deeply about the kids here. I think that, you know, they're working on the strategic plan. They're getting that feedback of what can never change about this place, but how do we move forward? And I think Canon's like discovering who they are. I think they're figuring out there's, you know, the best part of that is that they're lifting up the voices from within. Our teachers, they are doing amazing work. Our school has its core values. I think that always comes back to it, you know, and our taglines, you belong here. And I think that they do exceptional work on helping that be really real. And it's a gift to be a parent here as well, because you get to see it in action and not just read it on a piece of paper. And there's nothing that people want more than to know that their kids are safe and nurtured and cared for in this crazy world and learning. So yeah, I'm excited about our future.
Sarah, this has been such a treat for me. And I know we're here in Charlotte. We got to connect in person.
Yes.
If you're still listening in, this is what we do. I want you to remember this one question. What type of culture are you spreading? What type of person are you working to be? Who are you listening to? Who are you leading? And how are you leading with love? We want you to start with heart. We want you to lead with contagious culture. And we want you to be willing to take the risk because it's worth it. Sarah, I appreciate you so very much for another episode of the Contagious Culture. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.